And welcome to Open Studio. This is a show called Be in the Business, and I am your man, Jamie Thurston Wyngaard. So I'm sure some of you watching out there are either entrepreneurial, wanting to start a business, know someone that starts a business. But this show is for you. The thing about entrepreneurship, as glamorous as it seems, there's a lot of things that people aren't telling us about entrepreneurship and all the hardships there are to it. So what we're doing with Be in the Business is kind of unpacking those stories so that we can also learn from the seasoned experts what they've been through, what challenges they might have, and how they solve those things. Today we have an amazing guest. This is Ra-eese Moerat. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you. Ra-eese Moerat is a media professional, so he's been around the bush when it comes to journalism, PR, even some modeling as well. And he can tell us his story. I think I first want to do a little introduction, Ra-eese. He's been, I would say there's some really big stories around Blikkiesdorp that he's covered, about the silo, and his main journey is how he's been through all of these things. And he can unpack the misconceptions of being an entrepreneur. And himself, as he is right now, is an entrepreneur. So welcome, Ra-eese. Tell us a
Thank
bit
you so
about
much.
yourself.
So I grew up in Paarl. I'm middle child of three brothers. I always knew that I wanted to work in the media field. I just didn't know what it was. Later on, because I come from a community that needed voices, I decided that through media and through journalism, I could be that voice for people. So the core reason why I studied journalism was to tell the stories of people on the ground.
Okay.
Because many times we look at, when we look at the news, we see authority figures that always have these big platforms where they can speak, but people living on the ground, they don't have that. And I think that's where a journalist comes
That's
in.
really
And
admirable, Ra-eese. I think that sets you apart from other journalists that just are all about sensationalism.
100%. Well, I'm not going to say that, but I wanted to tell the untold stories. That's what I wanted to do.
Nice. So from your journey from there, you've delved quite into some big stories. Like I know you were involved being one of the first journalists that covered the Silo project in Cape Town.
Yes. So we got a tip off from someone that the silos were going to be developed at the V&A waterfront. I inquired through the city of Cape Town, and they sent me this video that was showcasing what it would look like at the end. So I, covered the story, interviewed the relevant parties, and today we see the silos up there. The Zuidsmarker
Nice.
Museum is there, the Virgin Active that everyone goes to is there. So it's nice to see that the story that you've worked on
Yeah.
so early actually materialized into what we now know
That's
as the
brilliant. I want
silo
to tell the
district.
viewers
Yeah.
also, if you're South African, you can go to the Zuidsmarker Museum for free on a Wednesday. Pro tip over there. From these writings, I think one of the most recent things is your involvement with the Goliath group. So your journey, as I've understood, you were a student, you worked in radio with Voice of the Cape, you worked for Hashtag Radio, you were your own presenter as well. I think I hope I'm doing good enough for you because you've been in this industry longer than I have. Then you moved to Joburg, so little Paul boy all the way to Joburg.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was quite an adjustment, even coming from, because I spent a lot of time in Cape Town after Paarl, but Joburg is an adjustment for someone that comes from Cape Town. The pace is much more faster, things get done immediately. Everyone always seems to be in a rush. I don't know. After work, people are rushing to get home, and I always sat in traffic, and I was like, your house isn't going to run away, so why are you rushing to get home? But that's just the culture of Joburg. I first started working at Hashtag Radio. That was my first job in media. I was a student at the time, and I decided to start working in journalism in my first year because I knew to do my honors, I would need 1 year's experience to qualify to do my honors. So by the time I completed my undergrad, I was ready to just go over to my honors instead of first going to work and coming back to university. I did a show on politics and social issues, even though the core of the station was very focused on entrepreneurship. I think I remember the slogan of it was the African Business Network.
Yeah, I think they probably the biggest job creation radio station with Jobvine.
Well,
as one of the
online
partners,
station, yes, at the time. So from there, I moved over to News 24, where I covered, a lot of travel news. But my travel news were always focused on the type of hard news that you'll get. So, for example, poaching in the Kruger National Park was a big story. The biometric data that was captured at airports, those type of things, not your conventional lifestyle of visit this destination. I did that, but that wasn't my niche that I focused on. I worked at Voice of the Cape thereafter, and I covered a lot of community news. And I think this is probably the best job I've had.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. One of the stories that stood out for me was the abandoned hospital in Woodstock. So there's a hospital that's empty, and I saw the Right to Know campaign had a banner up there that said Reclaim the City. And I went in there, I interviewed some of the residents in there, and I asked them, where do you come from? Because now the wards of the hospitals were turned into like bedrooms. And I asked them, where do you come from? And they told me that they were part of this whole gentrification of the city where people were displaced. So that was their only option, to go to this abandoned building, and it was
I love that you got to share that stories, because people need to also understand what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
I think we're also silent and live in our own little boxes.
100%.
And I think that's where the PR and journalism comes out.
Yes.
And from what I gather with you, you've been doing all these hardship stories, but then you've also worked in the entertainment space where you've publicized a lot of big entertainers. You were the head of PR.
Yeah, I was a PR executive for Goliath and Goliath.
And that's quite the big executive level to be on. And I think for someone I can call you young,
Yes.
someone that's young to be working with famous faces, I would say, famous South African faces, and be managing their PR.
The MD of Goliath and Goliath, Kate Goliath, she was an exceptional mentor. She always made me believe that whatever task she gave me, she always made me believe that I could do it. And I did feel that I was
Managers take note, that's how you treat your staff.
Yeah, I did feel sometimes that it was overwhelming at times, because it's a new space I've been exposed to, coming from such a hard news background, and now working in entertainment, and then doing the PR and managing these artists and managing bookings and events. And so it's a different space that I'm working in now.
Yeah.
One of the advantages I had, though, was that because my background was journalism, I could write my press stories to fit publications.
Yes.
So the success rate of getting stories published
That
was quite
definitely
high.
sets you apart from all the other people in the PR industry, because in PR they just feel like, okay, I must do a press release and I must talk about this artist.
Yeah.
Whereas in your case, you worked on the receiving end as a journalist, so you know exactly what you're looking for when it comes to PR.
100%.
And I think that's what sets you apart now as a freelancer and as an entrepreneur yourself. Is you came back to Cape Town, took all the stuff you learned from Joburg, and now you're going to implement that in Cape Town. So whoever you want to work with over here, you can do all those skills. I think if you want to work with Ra-eese, you can also check him out on your social media. And that's where we want to continue the discussion. We have to go on a little break now, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about what issues you face as an entrepreneur, and kind of demystify the whole areas of you being your own boss and how people perceive you and what really goes on in being your own boss. But thanks, guys. This is Being the Business, and I am Jamie Thurston. I'll see you soon. Welcome back to Being the Business. I'm your man, Jamie Thurston Wyngaard. When we left off, we were discussing all the successes of Ra-eese Moerat, and I think he's probably one of the best and most seasoned PR and media professional that I know. So now I want to talk more about being the business as an entrepreneur yourself, Ra-eese, of the challenges that you faced during COVID, and also what your perception and people's perception of you is as a managing director.
Yeah. So when COVID hit, a lot of the staff at Goliath and Goliath got retrenched. I was one of the last people to get retrenched. Thereafter, that was in March last year. Thereafter, I decided to continue staying in Joburg. I was continuing with my freelancing. But then I was forced to go into entrepreneurship because I couldn't find permanent
I
employment.
want to just find out, how was that experience for you? How was that feeling of working for a solid company, being in this high-end position, and then just losing your job?
Yeah, so it's one of those things where you don't really have a choice. I didn't choose entrepreneurship. I was forced into it because of the pandemic. It was, at the beginning, it was very challenging because I was used to getting a set salary every month. And that was one of the first challenges. Later in the year, towards the end of last year, I decided that I'm still living in Joburg. I might as well go home and not pay rent in Joburg because I didn't need to be there anymore because my job wasn't there.
Smart choice, I guess.
And then because people started working remotely, even in permanent positions, people were working remotely. I could be based anywhere, so there was no need for me to stay there. I wanted to start, I was freelancing for a long time, but then I wanted to formalize this little freelance business I had. So I spoke to a friend of mine, and he suggested that instead of starting from scratch your business, why don't you acquire 50% of my existing business? And that's what I did. So I acquired 50% of that business. And even within that, there was a lot of challenges because it wasn't mainstream journalism and it wasn't mainstream PR.
I think the benefit though of working as a freelancer and then merging with another company is that you come along with some reputation. So you yourself had a lot of reputation and you were respected and are respected in the media industry. And now when you join partnership with another company, not just an individual that's freelancing, that often people see as just a fly by night,
Yes.
even though you have all this media profession behind your name. When you joined up with another entrepreneur, you now
Yes.
become this workforce.
Yes.
There's now professional emails, there's letterheads, there's all these things. So
100%.
when it comes to working with more corporates, you can take on bigger clients, and you're not just seen as another freelancer.
Yeah.
Because you know freelancers are all over. Not that being a freelancer is bad, but a suggestion I'll make to freelancers
Yeah, I
is
think that
formalize your business.
I think freelancing is the future.
Yes, definitely the gig
We call it
economy.
the gig economy, yes. What was interesting for me and the adjustments I had to make was this person came with his expertise, which was different to mine. So we combined that. But then for a team of two, even though my title says managing director, we are two people in this business. A lot of the work needed to be outsourced also. So I had to learn about outsourcing. I had to learn about setting up contracts for outsources. So I was always on the media and creative side of things, but now I had to learn how to invoice, how to do all those business type
And
of things.
that is a different challenge for someone, especially that someone doesn't come from an entrepreneurship background. Those are basic things, basic business things around invoicing, around getting clients to pay you on
Yeah.
time, about working with all these other nitty-gritties around business management.
Yeah.
And yes, you're on the creative side, and now you're forced into this space. But there's also more around that I want to look at, unpacking, and discussing. You now got the title, straight from being a freelancer,
Yeah.
from Joburg, back to Paul,
Let
and
me
you're
tell
straight
you.
into managing director of a company.
Yeah, so this business part of mine, he puts up this post to introduce me to the public on social media, and the title says managing director, and everyone congratulates you as if you are the managing director of this big company. But little do they know, it's only two people that's trying to run a business. It isn't as big
Not
as
to
it
take
seems.
away from the success of that, though.
100%.
Yeah.
But on the scale from when you would look at a big corporate compared to like a startup business, yes, we have the same titles. We don't earn the same. We don't have full-time staff, that has constant flow of work, also that gets in constant flow of work. We don't have a sales team to get on new clients constantly. We have to do literally everything yourself. I was on the beach the other day and I posted a picture on my Instagram story. And one of my cousins asked another cousin, look, Ra-eese is at the beach, but look, we have to sit and work every day. And then this cousin told her, it's because Ra-eese has money, he works for himself. And I was at the beach because there wasn't any work. I had free time. So people think that you are living this amazing life, but you're not, because...
Yeah, I think that's a very big misconception. When you often see entrepreneurs living the best life on Instagram, going out for coffee at all the different places in Sea Point and Camps Bay, often at those times, it's not because you just live in. It's because right now I don't have a client. And what people also need to understand with entrepreneurship, if you don't have a client, it means you don't have money coming in.
100%.
And we have to do all these things to keep our mental health up,
Yes.
like going out, like taking a trip to the beach. Because I think it's also a benefit, though, because in other times when we work in overtime.
Yeah.
You work in without, you putting in much more extra than what you would put in if you're doing a corporate job. There's no guarantee of your next client after this client, so you need to work contract by contract. And there's all these other things that go with it.
And even like some of the other challenges now for me is being, working in this entrepreneurship capacity or environment is sometimes clients don't pay on time also. So that's another thing. working as a permanent, employee, you were never the one who had to go chase money.
Yeah.
Now, because you own your own business, you're the one who's supposed to go out there and like ask them, when are you paying me? When are you
Yeah.
paying
How
me?
does that make you feel, though?
It makes me feel awkward, to be honest, but I think I've grown in such a way that I now know that it has to be done. I've done the work, you need to pay me. It's that
Yeah.
simple. So, yeah, I mean, I've grown as a person within entrepreneurship also in terms of my own personality, because I was I didn't have such an authoritative type of, personality, but because of entrepreneurship, it forces you to be that person, because there's no one else that's going to do it for you.
Yeah, it forces you to be that boss, and I think you've done an amazing job so far. Is you've got the experience, you've been through a lot, you've learned a lot, you yourself have developed, and I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from other entrepreneurs. And I think out there to the viewers, if you've been in situations where you had to ask for money or you had to from clients, compared to a corporate where you just get paid your salary, regardless of whether the clients pay or not, you're doing your job and you get paid. I think if there's more people that have similar challenges, join us on social media and we continue the discussion. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back, I want to find out more about how you solved these solutions, how you went through this, and how you fixed it, because that's what we really want to know and learn about. We don't have to bump our head ourselves. We can use other entrepreneurs to bump their head. But that's Ra-eese's story, and when we come back, we can dig a bit more into the resolve around this. Thanks for watching Be in the Business. See you soon. And welcome back to Be in the Business. I'm Thurston, Wyngaard. We are here with a media professional, media mogul, Ra-eese Moerat. He just shared his journey with us and let us know what his challenges are. And now the big thing I want to find out, and the big share, is how you solve these issues.
Yeah.
So the challenge of working with a partner, the challenge of having to get money from clients and get, like, I think it's just difficult, of the invoicing and the business side of things. I want to know what you've done with yourself, or how you made yourself kind of switch to put that business hat on from someone coming from a corporate space.
Yeah, so I have to say I've learned a lot from my business partner, and a lot of my family members are in entrepreneurship also, so I've kind of spoken to them and hear how they navigate these things. One trick I did learn is that instead of just asking for the money, just resend the invoice and say, this is an updated invoice, and then, that helps sometimes. Some of the other things, you just learn as you go along. I mean, yeah, I don't.
No, sure thing. I'm thinking now that the trick with the updated invoice, do you do things like penalizing someone for paying late, or how do you deal with that
No.
relationship with the client where they don't pay, or I think one thing that you've mentioned before is that you don't like working with a client that doesn't pay.
Yeah.
So how do you sever that ties, and how do you identify, because often clients can come in and they can have a lot of money, or they perceive as having a lot of money and having a lot of business. So you, as an entrepreneur that needs to get that money, and now you're working with someone that's taking a bit longer to pay, do you then sever the ties, or do you continue, or how do you decide who to continue working with?
So what was difficult for me is that I started working in entrepreneurship during the period of COVID. So clients didn't have a lot of budget, and I had to compromise in certain ways also, because at the end of the day, I needed to put food on my table. When clients don't pay now, I try to work out a payment plan, and based on how they honor that plan, I decide whether I would work with them again.
That's an interesting thing of doing a payment plan. So how do you initiate that? Because I think that's something a lot of people can take home with. If a client doesn't pay immediately, how do you then structure your payment plan?
So depending on what is still owed on the project, I make a decision on whether I want to, acquire this money over 3 months, and then I will just divide it by the 3 months and say, okay, if you can't pay the full amount, rather pay these 3 installments over the next 3 months.
And you haven't been in situations where you had to go to court or had to go to those things? Okay, good shot for you, because I know there's a lot of people that have these situations where it gets so out of hand that they have to chase after money and go to court. And I feel like that it is reasonable to have to go those measures, but there's also the case of it takes up so much of your time. And I'm sure it even takes up your time having to re-invoice the client.
100%. It feels like actual work, you know.
Mm.
There's a lot of admin that comes with entrepreneurship, a lot of admin. At least 50% of the day I'm doing admin. And this is one of the things that also irks me is that within this space now, I focus so much on business things, and it's taking a toll on the creative side of the things that I've been doing. So I don't write as much as I used to because I'm always like writing proposals, sending out invoices, trying to get new clients. So the focus is there now because it's so early in the business, opposed to doing work, you know. So
I think that does take a toll on someone because being a creative, you have all this passion for what you do. The reason you started going into this industry was because you enjoyed what you do and you want to share these stories. And now coming in doing the business side of things. But then how do you feel you can work on that? Do you think it's a case of getting more people to work with you? But that also comes as a challenge because now it means you must pay them. And if it's even a struggle for you to make sure you get all your clients in line, even you with all your experience and all your PR behind your name, and we do understand that in this times it is a bit challenging for a lot of people.
yeah.
How is that situation? Do you get people to help you?
So I think because the business is so new, it's just normal that you'll be spending a lot of time trying to acquire clients. I think with time, and I think as the pandemic eases also, we'll get more work, which means that I will then be able to focus on more of the creative side of things opposed to the business side of things. I'm fortunate because I have a business partner and his niche is business. So he focuses on that too. But I'm saying during this period of the pandemic and the early stages of my business, we are just trying to get more clients.
Yeah, I think it's been difficult for everybody. And what I find strange is, especially in this time, for businesses and small businesses, the PR side is extremely important. And this is a discussion I think I've had before with a lot of other people, and you can check out social media around this, is how people invest in a product or they invest in a service and they build their business around the service, but you can have the most amazing service or most amazing product. But if nobody knows about it, if nobody is doing the PR for you, the professional PR, the proper marketing, your product's going to go nowhere. And I think more people need to become aware of this.
Yeah, but PR has been quite difficult during this time also because a lot of media houses have prioritized COVID stories and a lot of politics because of the pandemic also. A lot of the corruption because of the pandemic also. So it's been challenging to get things published if your story don't carry weight. So I think now it's just to look at angles on how whatever it is that you're doing, how that fits in with what's currently happening. How does it tie in with COVID or the pandemic? How does it tie in with corruption? How does it tie in with anything else that's relevant now?
I think that's a really good point
So
to
that's
leave
how you push
the small businesses on, is when you do come and you want to publicize your business, I would say come speak to Ra-eese. You can check his details on social media as well, and we'll probably be popping on the screen right now. But with that, you can then come forward and say, this is what this is what our business is, and this is the entertainer that I am, and this is how I feel I fit in with the entire pandemic. So you don't have to fight for views and fight with COVID and fight with corruption for views. Ra-eese, what I want to leave our viewers with is if you could go back in time, we made a little time machine, just to speak to your younger self, what advice from the entrepreneurship side would you give younger Ra-eese right now?
Yeah. I think I would definitely tell myself to work more wiser with money. Because, you know, the pandemic came very unexpected. And I think none of us were prepared for that. And if I could give myself advice, my younger self, I would say be wiser with your money because you never know when you might need it. If I, you know, spent wisely before, I could have used the money that I saved, or I would have had more money that I could have pushed into my business now.
That is a tip that we can take home, not just for entrepreneurs, but everybody. We are on time, but I think this is definitely a discussion we can take online. So if you want to join us online, if you even have your story to share, jump on social media, comment, like, share, and engage with us. This is Be in the Business, and see you next week. Goodbye.